Thank you so much, Danielle. Hello and welcome, everyone. As Danielle said, I'm Nancy Neal, and I'm the Community Program Manager for the New York, New Jersey chapter of the Parkinson's Foundation. I'm so happy to welcome you to On the Menu, Nutrition and Parkinson's. Before we start the presentation, I'd like to take just a moment and share the mission of the Parkinson's Foundation with you. At the foundation, we work to make lives better for people living with Parkinson's by improving care and advancing research towards a cure. We have everything you need to live better with Parkinson's. To achieve our mission, we pursue three goals: to improve care for everyone living with Parkinson's, to advance research towards a cure, and to empower and educate our global Parkinson's community. And we do this all by building on the energy, experience, and passion of the global Parkinson's community. We have so much for you to take advantage of, and we are truly here for you. The foundation has a vast number of resources available for free for you to take advantage of. Books, podcasts, our hospitalization kit, the Aware and Care kit. We have many centers of excellence and so much more. I really encourage you to reach out to our helpline, to our fantastic helpline staff at 1-800-473-4636, and visit our website, which also has so much information, parkinson.org. You'll be able to find out so much more. It's important for us to take just a moment and recognize and thank our incredible sponsors who make this programming possible. And I'd like to start by acknowledging our gold sponsor, Kiowa Curran. Thank you so much to everyone at Kiowa Curran for your support for On the Menu. We also have a number of silver sponsors, the first being Boston Scientific. My thanks to everyone at Boston Scientific for your great support of our program today. Also, Amneal, the good folks at Amneal supported this program today. And last but certainly not least, Medtronic. We send our thanks and appreciation to everyone at Medtronic. That's hard for you to know what that was all about. So I want to let you know that you can go to our chapter supporters page and you can learn so much more about all the work that these companies do and their support of the work that we do. So visit our chapter supporters page by going to parkinson.org/NYNJ and click on the chapter supporters tile to learn more about Kiowa Curran, Boston Scientific, Amneal, and Medtronic. So we'd like to kick things off today with our first poll, and we would love to get everyone's input. I'm just curious, have you ever discussed nutrition with your neurologist? Yes or no? And just take a moment now to vote, and we'll let you know what the results are in just a moment. The votes are coming in. I can see them on my other screen. Getting a good response. And the final results, interestingly, 65% of our total audience today has not discussed nutrition with their neurologist, while 35% have. So the good news is you're going to get that chance to start that exploration and discussion, because at this point, I would love to move forward with our presentation. And I'm honored to introduce our keynote speaker, and I would love to ask Dr. Pal to share a screen at this point while I introduce him. Dr. Gian Pal is a board-certified neurologist, movement disorder specialist, and clinician scientist focused on Parkinson's disease. He received his medical degree from Robert Wood Johnson Medical School, completed his residency in neurology at Georgetown University Medical Center, and received his Master's of Science in Clinical Research from the Rush University Medical College, where he also was a member of the faculty and did fellowship training in movement disorders. After 6 years at Rush, Dr. Pal joined the faculty at Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. And his research interests include deep brain stimulation, often referred to as DBS, Parkinson's disease genetics, and studying the role of the gut microbiome in Parkinson's disease. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Paul. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Nancy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you sound great.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank the Parkinson's Foundation and Nancy Nealon for giving me the privilege of speaking today. And to everybody who's in the audience, I appreciate that you're taking time out of your day to listen to this talk. I think nutrition is one of these topics that is often overlooked in Parkinson's. And I think it's a very important topic to consider since it's a fundamental part of our health and well-being. So I'm going to try to cover some key concepts as we move through the talk, and then also hopefully give you all some tips and tricks and things that I talk about with my patients when we're thinking about nutrition and how it affects their Parkinson's. Okay. So let's start with a poll question. Have you thought about how diet may affect your Parkinson's? Yes or no? Oh, that's the second poll question.
Did we do the wrong time frame here, Dr. Paul?
Maybe. So we can come back to that poll question later then. Is that okay?
Sure, we can revisit this while we're doing the movement break. How does that sound?
Sounds great. Okay, so we'll come back to this question. Okay, so here are the objectives of the talk today. By the end of the presentation, hopefully, you'll be able to discuss the basics of nutrition and how the foods impact people with Parkinson's, understand the importance of healthy eating for people with Parkinson's and how some foods may promote brain health. And also, I hope that you will understand the relationship of meal timing and food interaction with Parkinson's medications. So let's get right into the basics of nutrition and Parkinson's. So nutrition refers to the process of providing or obtaining the food necessary for health and growth. And it refers to a branch of science where we study how nutrients and food impact the health and metabolism. And diet, believe it or not, is just a general term that refers to the kinds of food that a person, animal, or community habitually eats. So something that you maintain on a routine basis. And what are the goals of what we want from our diet? Well, we want to extract macro, micro nutrients and other food components. So some of the macronutrients that are critical are proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Proteins are certainly very important for muscle building and muscle maintenance. And as Parkinson's patients, depending on their level of exercise or activity level, they may be losing muscle mass. And so it's very important to not neglect protein, but to have it as part of the diet and think about where in the diet it should be from a timing standpoint. And we will get into this. We also want to get micronutrients. So vitamins and minerals are very critical to Parkinson's and our brain health. So vitamins such as vitamin B12 and folate, folic acid, have an impact on our cognition and can also impact our ability to ambulate or walk. Vitamin D has a very big role in terms of our mood, but also has been linked to the role it may play in osteoporosis and fall risk for Parkinson's disease. These are key vitamins and minerals that we want to think about and we want to ideally extract from food sources. You can always supplement these food sources with pills or vitamins or minerals in the form of pills. But I think eating a rich and healthy diet is one of the best ways to get the vitamins and minerals and to do that naturally. Other food components that are very important for and beneficial to health are dietary fiber and phytonutrients, nutrients that come from plants. We know that constipation is very much linked to Parkinson's disease. And Parkinson's, just as it may slow the body down, it can slow the bowels. So fiber is a key nutrient that is important for digestion and impacts the regularity with which an individual has bowel movements. And this is critical in terms of how we think about medication absorption. Medications that we will talk about, such as levodopa, if a person is backed up and is not having regular bowel movements, their medication may work in a less predictable way. So we want to take advantage of food components like fiber to make the bowel movements more regular and thereby making the absorption of the medication, particularly levodopa, more regular and more predictable. So nutrition acts as the fuel for our body to function. You know, we have this analogy here or metaphor where, we have the car, which cannot work at its best without gas and an oil change. So what you put in certainly affects what you get out. And one of the things that I'm studying in my research as well is how what we put in actually changes the environment of inflammation within our body. So in other words, the food that you put in affects the bacteria, viruses, fungi, and other microorganisms that reside in our gut. And so we would like to keep our gut healthy and balanced, and eating the right diet and eating the right foods can help do that. There's been a link with inflammation in the gut and potentially developing Parkinson's disease. And there's lots of studies out there looking at whether we can reduce the risk of Parkinson's by reducing the inflammation in the gut, but also can we alter the disease progression by reducing inflammation in the gut? I think that's very powerful. I think that's very powerful because it gives you, the patient, control over how you fight the disease. A lot of these studies are ongoing and are being explored, but I think it's an interesting area that can have certainly far-reaching consequences. Okay, so now we have the correct poll question here. How would you describe the diet that you currently follow?
Okay, and I will try and interpret the results as they're coming in. So we know we have Mediterranean, raw food, vegetarian, or other. And it's strongly a race between Mediterranean and other right now. And I think we'll just give it a few more seconds.
Okay.
And, okay, other just narrowly squeaked out as the winner. 56% of people reporting that they follow some other diet. Mediterranean, a big second place, 42%. And the others really not much to mention in terms of the results.
Okay, very good. So when we think about diet, certainly we know that there's a lot of different diets out there, and poor diet can lead to a lot of issues, such as fatigue, malnutrition, or obesity, poor gut health. I talked about some of the inflammation that can cause within the gut and cause problems such as constipation. Poor diet can lead to dehydration, certainly reduced quality of life, and then also an increased severity of Parkinson's symptoms, motor and non-motor. I hinted at this a little bit by talking about levodopa and its absorption. And so again, if somebody's backed up or constipated, they may find that their medication does not work very reliably. And that can affect their motor symptoms, certainly, but also their non-motor symptoms. And poor diet can also increase risk of other chronic conditions like diabetes, heart disease, and hypercholesterolemia or high cholesterol. We also want to think about food and drug interactions. So, what do you all think is the best diet for people with Parkinson's?
Okay, and now we see what people are thinking about dietary choices. And the Mediterranean diet is definitely trending as the leader here. However, depends on the person is a close second. So we'll just give it, okay, we're done now. 57% of our audience, Dr. Paul, voted for Mediterranean, and 39% voted for depends on the person.
All right, very good. Well, the answer is the best one that works for you and your individual needs. Okay, everybody is different. So I think Parkinson's, as it evolves, an individual's diet evolves, and nutrition should not be approached in a cookie cutter fashion. Okay, but if we had to pick one, the Mediterranean diet would be the winner. Okay. And this is frequently discussed in the news. It's rated #1 by the US News and World Report in 2020. And the reason that it's so popular is because it's been shown that it could be beneficial for heart disease, stroke, cancer, weight management, diabetes, brain health, and Parkinson's. Okay. So the reason I like the Mediterranean diet is it's typically a pretty common sense diet. Okay, we're not typically excluding large food groups, and we're really focusing on foods that are not processed. They don't come in a box, they don't come in a bag, but they're whole foods. Okay, they're not processed, and we talk about eating the rainbow, and the Mediterranean diet certainly gets into this idea. So we favor in the Mediterranean diet high consumption of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts and legumes, fish and olive oil. We want to reduce our consumption of things like red meat, butter or margarine, or processed foods and sweets. Okay, and we think that when we eat these foods that are on the left here, the high consumption foods, that again, these are foods that are whole foods, but also are going to reduce inflammation within our gut and thereby reduce inflammation within the body and even the brain. Okay. What you see on the left, the foods like nuts, fish, and olive oil have healthy fats in them. Whereas the foods on the low consumption group, the red meat, butter, margarine, and processed foods, have fats that are really not great for us and get stuck and clog up our arteries, not only in our heart, but also in our brain. And so we have to think about that. I think a lot of times when you think about clogging of arteries, we always think about the heart. Well, our brain also has these blood vessels, and we can also get deposits in our brain. Over time, those deposits can lead to stroke, but even small deposits that accumulate over time can have a significant impact on gait or walking in Parkinson's. So we don't want to neglect that because we want to minimize the harm to our brain from non-Parkinson's related factors. And by eating the foods that you see on the left, the high consumption foods, we can potentially reduce some of the blockages or damage to the blood vessels in the brain, and thereby preserve gait and walking. So here's the Mediterranean diet food pyramid. You can see at the bottom, the biggest category actually is not food, it's physical activity. And we're lucky to have Stacy Macaluso with us today, who's gonna take us through a break in which she goes through a quick exercise session with everybody. But being physically active and enjoying meals with other without distractions, without cell phones or Zoom meetings or television, is the biggest group here that we need to partake in. And I think of exercise, I tell my patients that I think of exercise like medicine, okay? So exercise and physical activity is the biggest group. Now, of course, I understand the social interaction piece is challenging with the ongoing pandemic, but there are ways, and you have to be creative, certainly, to get that social interaction we crave, that we all crave, while still remaining socially distant, maintaining social distance. The next group that you see is the biggest actual food group. And there you see fruits, vegetable, grains, whole grains, ideally. So things like brown rice, whole grain pasta, whole wheat bread, olive oil, beans, nuts, legumes, seeds, herbs, and spices. I want to emphasize something that, diet, putting what you put into your body matters, but it also matters how much you're putting in. Okay. So don't neglect that piece of it. And I usually tell my patients that this category, the fruits, vegetables category, really should be the star of the plate. So half the plate should be vegetables. A quarter of the plate can be a carbohydrate. And then a quarter of the plate can be the next category, fish or seafood, or something above or a small portion of poultry. Okay. And that's how I would structure my plate if you're going to adhere to this Mediterranean diet. And when you eat vegetables and fruits, you heard me say this earlier, we want to focus on eating the rainbow. So that means a variety of different colors and textures, and that will keep the meals interesting and while also getting a variety of nutrients at the same time. Hydration is so critical, okay? I tell my patients a lot about doing the basics, focusing on sleep, diet, exercise, and hydration. And making sure that you're drinking plenty of fluid, which is actually going to help move the waste out of the body, okay, is so critical. I have plenty of patients who eat pretty well, but they really don't pay attention to their hydration status. I'm going to give you a tip that I like to give to my patients regarding hydration. So I tell my patients when they wake up first thing in the morning, the body has been without any water all night typically. So you must wake up and have a glass of water, at least 8 ounces. I strongly believe that water that is kind of lukewarm or tepid is easier and can help easier to take down and also can help with digestion rather than something that's ice cold first thing in the morning. So I would recommend tepid, lukewarm water, 8 ounces first thing when you wake up. And then just how you structure your day and you keep a schedule with your medications or your exercise or your day-to-day activities, you want to think about the water the same way. So if you have 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you're going to consume 8 ounces of water with each meal. So we're already up to 4 glasses of water, 1 when we wake up and 1 with each meal. Then we're going to add a glass of water in between meals. You're going to have 8 ounces between breakfast and lunch and 8 ounces between lunch and dinner. So now we're up to 6 solid glasses of water a day. And if you're exercising or you're doing vigorous exercising like rock steady boxing or riding the stationary bike or yoga, whatever it may be, you want to hydrate before, during, and after, in addition to those 6 glasses ideally. Now, you have to listen to your body and do what kind of tailor my recommendations to yourself, but that's a general guideline that I suggest to my patients. In terms of wine, you can see wine is on this list here, and it says in moderation. I will typically tell my patients that a little bit of wine is probably okay from time to time. We still want to enjoy the small things in life, whether it be wine or having our little sweet treat occasionally. But just be aware that the wine will, of course, impact your balance, and Parkinson's impacts balance. Okay. So you want to just be aware of that, that you're careful and that you're with other people if you're going to have a glass of wine, that your balance is not so impaired that, God forbid, you have a fall. And wine also, alcohol also dehydrates the body. So if you have alcohol, I would recommend that you, after you've consumed your glass of wine, you have 1 to 2 glasses of water soon after that to compensate for the wine. Okay. Other little tips and tricks that I want to talk about here while we're talking about food that people may or may not think about is if people have tremor, you want to be aware of caffeine. Things like coffee, tea, and chocolate will drive tremor, potentially. So you want to pay attention to what your tremor looks like, if you have tremor, in the hours after you consume a caffeinated beverage to see how it affects the body. Caffeine can also affect some of the non-motor symptoms, such as anxiety. So I would watch your caffeine intake in terms of how you deal with the Parkinson's. There are nutritional supplements that people are also taking that are advertised on TV that you might get from the drugstore over the counter. And again, you want to read those labels very carefully and see if caffeine is one of those ingredients. Very often, caffeine is one of the ingredients which is aimed at, these products claim to boost cognition, and caffeine is one of the things that increases alertness. So that boost in cognition may just be a bump from caffeine. So be aware of that and look at those labels carefully when you get supplements. Nancy, we're just about at 1:30. Should we take a break and have Stacy do her
Absolutely. I think that
exercise
would be
session?
great.
Okay,
Okay.
wonderful.
All right. So as Stacy is gearing up, I will, and Dr. Paul, you can stop sharing your screen. Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. And we'll get Stacy ready to go here. Some of you may be familiar and know Stacy. She's quite popular and has quite the following from the CATS JCC in Cherry Hill. But at this time, it's my honor and pleasure to introduce Stacy Macaluso, who will be doing our movement break today. Stacy has been working in the Parkinson's community for over 10 years. As a coordinator of the Parkinson's Connection at the CATS JCC in Cherry Hill, she runs several programs and events to support those with PD and their families. Rocksteady Boxing, Pedaling for Parkinson's, and Dance for PD are just a few of the programs she's certified in. Currently, classes are being held virtually and serving over 200 people weekly, which is phenomenal, with exercise programs and support services. So Stacy, many thanks for being with us today, and we'd love to see your movement break now, and everyone follow along.
Excellent. Welcome, everyone. So it's excellent to hear Dr. Paul speak, but as we sit and listen, we can tend to fall in our posture and get a little bit too sunken down in the chair. So it's always good to have a little break so that we can get some movement and get re-energized. So I'm going to piggyback on what Dr. Paul said and encourage everybody to have a beverage nearby as you're sitting for long periods of time or exercising. Absolutely have your drink close by and take a little sip when you need. I'm going to begin my music and step back into my room a little bit so that you can see me a little bit better. And we're going to do this from our chair today. But feel free if you're feeling like you need to get up and stretch your legs and do this in a standing position. Everything that we're going to do today can be done standing and seated. So feel free to explore anything. If you do get up from your chair, make sure that you take time to set yourself in your position, that you don't feel dizzy with a quick rise up, and that you use your chair as a lifeline or a little balance aid if you need. All right, let's do this. I'm gonna make sure my timer is set so that I don't go over, because I have been known to do that for those of you that know me. So finding yourself seated in your chair, nice and tall, whether you're standing or seated, you want to have posture that really lifts up from the spine all the way in the cervical down to the bottom of your spine, the sacrum, bringing your shoulders back and lifting your heart and chest.
Casey, it's Nancy. I'm sorry to interrupt. You might need to turn down the music.
I had a
little
feeling
bit.
you were going to say that. You got it. Let's take an inhale breath first, finding the lungs expanding. And an exhale breath, letting the breath come out, feeling that kind of balloon feeling go into a little closer. Inhale again, make that balloon nice and big. And exhale, letting the balloon deflate. And let's take one more nice big breath. Inhale and exhale. Now recognize where your chin is. The length of your neck and your throat should be open. Take your chin down to your chest, feeling a stretch in the back of the neck. And then lifting the head up again, creating that parallel with your chin. And again, lower. And lift. What we're doing here is we're just isolating parts of the body to warm them up. And take a look over to the right wall and go through your center to the left and again to the right and the left. Let's bring our gaze back to the center and let the ear fall towards our shoulder and stretching the lateral sides of the neck and switching side to side, just feeling that fluid movement. Let's take a couple more. And bring the head up nice and long. The crown of the head should be reaching to the ceiling. Let's shrug the shoulders up. Feel that tension in the neck and then release it down. And bring it up again with an inhale and an exhale. And I want you to bring your hands to your knees if they're not there already. And we're going to sink back into a slouching position. And then we're going to come forward, bending our elbows and extending our heart towards the floor. Come back again, rounding the back, contracting the belly, and then extending forward with your chest. Lengthen up straight to the ceiling. Again, nice long spine. And let's tip our weight over to the right and the left. Just exploring the lateral side now of the body and the weight transfer. Continuing to feel the breath flowing in and out. And let's smooth out the edges and make nice big circles coming forward over the thighs and then back. And as we rotate forward and side and back, We're transferring the weight in all different directions. And let's reverse it. I'm going to take you on a little journey after we warm up the body. We'll explore a little bit of dance and a little bit of boxing. Come back right to your center, lift up tall again in that torso, and let's lift the heels and lower the heels, getting the feet and the ankles, the toes, everything kind of warmed up. And now that you're at home, you may not have shoes on, you may be able to spread your toes out. If you do have shoes on, you may feel a little bit more of a, the feet are a little bit more contained in their space. Now let's take the toes out and in. And as we move the feet and the toes go out and in, that movement really comes from the hips. You feel everything moving in that hip socket, opening the knees out into an external rotation. And let's take one more, and we're going to leave them there. And I want you to bend over, letting your right shoulder come forward, look to the left wall, and lift back up. And let's do that again. And we're going to take 2 more times. And we should be nice and warmed up to get into some dance movements. And come back up to sitting. Let's bring our feet back center and parallel so the toes look like the number 11. Hands could be on your thighs. It could be down, holding onto the bottom of your chair. Either way. We're going to start with our right foot. Here we go. We're going to tap it out with the heel and back. And 2 and back. 3. And let's switch to the left foot. Extend it long. Now let's alternate right and left. And whatever speed works for you is the right speed. Your workout is based on just feeling good and enjoying it. Lift the heels up 2 times. And again, starting on the left. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now the right side. Flex that foot out. Let that heel touch. Bring it back. And let's alternate. 1 and 2. Good. Keep going. 3 and 4. We have 4 more. Now lift those heels up and reach the arms up at the same time. And 2, 3. Let's take 1 more. Hold them up. Wiggle the fingers. And let everything come down nice and gently. Good. I think that the volume went up. Let me adjust it 1 second. Now I'd like to take you into a little trip down boxing road. So let's bring our hands up right under our chin. And this would be something that you may experience in a boxing or a rock steady boxing class. Our right arm is going to extend out all the way and come back. And let's do that again. 4 times on the right. Jab, 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 jab. And say it with me. Let's do the left side. Jab, 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 jab. Now the reason I want you to speak when we do these movements is because that connects the cognitive work, also exercises your vocals. Let's alternate. Ready? Here we go. Jab, 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 jab. We have 2 more. Jab and jab. Now we're going to add a little bit to it. We're going to take that arm up and make a half circle, and that's called a hook. And let's do the left side. Hook and hook, hook, hook. 3 more. 2 and 1. Bring those hands in. I'm going to put it together now for you. We're going to take 4 jabs front. 2, 3, 4. 4 hooks. Hook, hook, hook. Then we're gonna lift the knee and lift the other knee up. Let's do that again. Here we go. Jab, 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 jab. Hook, 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 hook. Knee, knee. One more time. Really loud voices for me. Jab, 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 jab. Hook, 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 hook. Knee and knee. Beautiful. Take the arms down, let the palms face forward. Shrug the shoulders up, bring them back, and place them down, reaching your fingertips to the floor. Wiggle your toes in your shoes. Squeeze your hands into a fist. Inhale the arms up. Exhale the arms forward for me, and open the palms nice and big. Close and open. 3 more. And 2. That's it. And 1. Bring your palms together right in front of your heart. And thank you so much for joining me today on your movement break. Now we're going to return to Dr. Paul and the remainder of our program. And I hope to see you all exercising and moving and keeping up.
Thanks so much, Stacy. Thanks, Dr. Paul. On back to you.
All right. Thank you, Stacy. That was wonderful. I'm just going to share my screen here again. Okay, we're back on. So now that we are all energized, let's continue our talk here. So what are the health benefits of the Mediterranean diet? Well, you've heard me mention this word inflammation several times, and it is a type of anti-inflammatory diet because you're getting a high volume of antioxidants from plant-based foods. These plant-based foods scavenge toxins that are released during stress or during inflammation. And those toxins damage our brain cells and our body cells. And the antioxidants come in and scoop them up. So antioxidants from plant foods are very, very powerful. Omega-3 fats from fish and seafood, these are essential dietary fats that can influence brain and health and function. And the way that I think about it is cells of the body, the outer region of the cells of the body are made of lipids or fats. And these omega-3s preserve the integrity of those cells and are directly kind of switched or transmitted into the walls of those cells. And then we talked about dietary fiber, and we want to get these from plant foods. So dietary fiber is a non-digestible carbohydrate that can influence our gut health and immune function. So that fiber helps to take away a lot of the waste in the body and also replenishes the tissue within our gut to keep that tissue healthy and clean. Other health benefits of the Mediterranean diet include lowering of bad cholesterol, which is LDL, and raising good cholesterol, which is HDL. May also lower lower blood pressure, prevent heart disease and stroke, and reduce symptoms of depression. And I talked about this earlier with the blood vasculature, the vessels in the heart and the vessels in the brain. And so having this type of diet can reduce inflammation and also deposits in the vessels that feed these critical organs. The Mediterranean diet has been shown to potentially slow age-related cognitive decline. I mean, this is very, very powerful. So this was a study that was done in Spain where 334 volunteers who had an average age of 65 were randomized to 3 different groups: a Mediterranean diet plus extra virgin olive oil, a Mediterranean diet plus nuts, and then the control diet. And these subjects were followed for about 4 years, okay? And you can see that the Mediterranean diet individuals had significant improvements in memory, frontal cognition, and global cognition. And that's very, very powerful. So here you can see the differences. This is just highlighting the Mediterranean group versus the control group. And you can clearly see the difference between the red rectangles. So more research is being conducted in Parkinson's. Very few studies have actually looked at dietary interventions that may improve motor or non-motor symptoms of Parkinson's. Some studies show that a Mediterranean diet might help reduce the risk of Parkinson's, delay the age at which Parkinson's comes on, and it may reduce constipation symptoms. So these are all, again, themes that I've hit on earlier that you can see are coming back again. We're talking about reducing inflammation, reducing risk of Parkinson's, reducing inflammation and delaying onset of Parkinson's, and then reducing inflammation and reducing symptoms of Parkinson's, and potentially even delaying progression, but that remains to be shown. So the Mediterranean diet is not a one-size-fits-all approach. Again, one of the key things I really want to emphasize when it comes to diet is there's so many things that the way that our brain works is we think it's all or none. We're either 100% in it or we're not doing it at all. It doesn't have to be like that. Okay, so we just want to wake up every morning and do our best, okay, to incorporate more of these foods into our diet. So if you're not following the Mediterranean diet at present, a starting point would be to incorporate more vegetables in your diet, more fruits in your diet, more whole grains in your diet, and then to try to reduce some of the other things that you might be eating too much of, like potentially red meat or processed foods. And if you slip up, that's okay. You haven't failed. It's not all or none. So that's really what I want you to take home from this is it's got to be something that fits into your palate. It's got to work for you and likely your family. And it's got to be foods that you enjoy and that your family enjoys. And so you want to think about incorporating more and more of these foods and reducing less of the other foods. So again, emphasis on dietary pattern versus diet, adapting to the situation. And this is looking at the totality of all foods and beverages consumed. So I don't think of foods as bad foods, okay? They all have a place in our diet. Some have less nutritional value and more quality of life or enjoyment value. But that doesn't mean that we can't take advantage of that. We just have to look at incorporating more of the good foods and less of the foods that are treats. So the Mediterranean diet is just one tool in the toolbox for people with Parkinson's, okay? Now we're gonna shift gears and talk about Parkinson's and food-drug interactions. This, I think, is always a confusing topic. And when I first meet a patient, one of the first things I do is talk about their medication schedule, timing, and how it relates to food. So we're going to skip this poll question for now. And really what we're going to look at is how does the main drug that we use for Parkinson's, carbidopa-levodopa or Sinemet, how is that affected by diet? Okay, so carbidopa-levodopa, what is it? Okay, the main ingredient in carbidopa-levodopa is levodopa. Levodopa is the ingredient that actually goes into the brain and gets converted to dopamine. As we know, dopamine is deficient in Parkinson's, so we are simply replacing dopamine. by taking this medicine. Carbidopa actually blocks the breakdown of levodopa in the bloodstream and in the gut. So when levodopa breaks down in the gut or in the bloodstream, it can cause nausea. Carbidopa blocks that nausea and allows or increases the chance that most of the levodopa will get to the brain. So the carbidopa by itself is kind of inert, doesn't do a whole lot other than block the breakdown of levodopa so it can kind of safely escort or make it to the brain. The reason Sinemet is called Sinemet, sin is Latin for without, and emet is emesis or vomiting. So without vomiting is this the name of the drug. So the dietary proteins are one of the key things that patients always ask about in terms of the main food-drug interaction with Sinemet. And it's true that protein can compete with levodopa for absorption in the gut and in the brain. And protein may interfere with absorption of the Sinemet and reduce kind of the reliability with which the medicine works. So in other words, if you take Sinemet with food, you might be hoping it works in 30 to 45 minutes, but it may work in an hour or an hour and a half. And also, you might lose some of the levodopa in the stool. And so you might have early wearing off. So the medicine might not last as long as you would like it to. So you might want it to last 3 hours, but it might only last 2 hours because you took it with food. Typically, these kinds of issues with protein and medication interaction or food and medication interaction typically occur after 10 years of Parkinson's diagnosis, but I always encourage my patients to develop good habits from the beginning so that they understand this early on and can maximize how they're using the medication early on. So in practice though, I always tell patients that your body didn't read the textbook, okay? So we have to think about these concepts and principles that we know from research, but they vary greatly on an individual basis. So patient 1 who was recently diagnosed with Parkinson's takes Sinemet with meals 3 times a day and has on time or feels the medicine working 30 minutes after. Patient 2, Parkinson's patient living with Parkinson's for 6 years, takes Sinemet 30 minutes before meals 4 times a day and gets the on time 20 to 30 minutes after. In scenario 3, the patient has Parkinson's for 15 years, takes Sinemet 30 minutes before meals 5 times a day, and the on time occurs in a 30 to 60 minute window, depending on the food they eat at their meal. Okay, so you can see that not only does it vary from patient to patient, but where they are in the disease also plays a critical role. So other things that can interact with Sinemet are delayed stomach emptying, delayed or decreased absorption of the medication, and nutrients that can interfere with stomach emptying include proteins, fats, and dietary fibers. So this may explain why some patients have decreased effectiveness after eating out at a restaurant or having a very large meal, because they get a big bolus of all of these nutrients, which lead to delayed stomach emptying. And so the medication cannot get absorbed as reliably as we would like it to. It doesn't make it through the GI tract as reliably. So here are some general recommendations for taking Sinemet, okay? Typically, I will tell patients to take the Sinemet on an empty stomach 30 to 45 minutes before meals. And then typically 2 hours after a meal. Now, this gets tricky. If you're taking the Sinemet very frequently, there may not be a window where you can have 30 minutes before a meal and then 2 hours after a meal. So that's the scenario where you might have to only use 1 hour. So you know, these are again guidelines. You have to listen to your body and do your best. But as a rule of thumb, I will say the Cinemet should be taken 30 to 45 minutes before meals, and then wait 2 hours after eating before you take your next dose. And you can adjust this according to the effectiveness and your preferred schedule and what's going on in your life and timing. Some patients can tolerate the Cinemet with food, and others may need more time fasting in order to get the medication absorbed. So remember, everybody is different, okay? And then another key thing is you want to space out the Cinemet so that it has maximum efficacy during your waking hours. I cannot tell you how many patients I see who take Cinemet and they're on low doses of Cinemet, and they take their, they take their first dose in the morning, the second dose in the late afternoon, and the third dose before bedtime. The whole point of Cinemet, especially early in the disease, is to help with your mobility. So that third dose that you take before going to bedtime is a wasted dose. So that's why I like to tie the medication to the meals, especially early in the disease. So 30 to 45 minutes before breakfast, 30 to 45 minutes before lunch, 30 to 45 minutes before dinner. And that typically gives you an equal spacing of how the medication will work and give you that functional benefit that you can use in your day-to-day life. Okay? Again, everybody's different and everybody has different circumstances. So that bedtime dose may be appropriate for some individuals. But as a rule of thumb, you should be getting the bulk of your medicine during the waking hours of the day. So if you are more sensitive to meal timing and Cinemet, and you might have issues like nausea when taking it on an empty stomach, you can pair the medication with a simple carbohydrate. Simple carbs include juice, soda or ginger ale, white bread, crackers, things of that sort. I typically recommend crackers. I think that works pretty well. You have a couple saltines with a little bit of water, and then you have your Cinemet. The other thing that you can do, remember I told you that Cinemet is a combination of carbidopa and levodopa. You can get extra carbidopa through a prescription from your doctor. So the regular inert carbidopa that does not have levodopa, you would boost the carbidopa and take that with your Cinemet. So the Cinemet has 25 milligrams of carbidopa and 100 milligrams of levodopa, let's say. Well, you could take another 25 or 50 milligrams of just carbidopa with the Cinemet, so that at each dose you would be taking 50 or 75 milligrams of carbidopa along with 100 milligrams of levodopa, and that could block the nausea. If you find that you're particularly sensitive to protein, you can redistribute protein and shift it to the end of the day when you're done taking your medicine. So your last dose of medicine might be at 6 p.m. And then at 7 p.m., you can have all of your protein that you would like and redistribute it so that you're not having much protein during the day, but take it only at nighttime after that last dose. And then talk with your doctor, ask questions of your doctor about nutrition and how that impacts your Parkinson's. I think this is a very, very important thing and so critical. This is such a unique disease, and Cinemet is such a unique medicine that it is so exquisitely sensitive to diet and timing. So you really have to work these details out with your doctor. And it's one of the first things I do with all my patients. It's talk about timing, diet, and the timing of the meals with the food. And then you may have to meet with a dietitian who might also come up with a more tailored approach for your specific needs. And, having a low protein or low caloric intake will certainly lead to poor nutrition, but will also reduce muscle mass, will have detriments to bone health and general health. You won't be getting all those good macro and micronutrients I talked about. And you're not taking advantage of one of the things that are in your power to control. Some things in Parkinson's you can't control, But diet, exercise, hydration, those are things you can control. So we want to really maximize our energies on the things that we can control. Other Parkinson's medicines, like the dopamine agonist medications, which include pramipexole, rotigotine, and ropinirole, they don't interact with dietary proteins. You don't have any specific dietary restrictions. Side effects may impact you if you take it with or without foods. So that's something you have to discuss individually with your physician. Rasagiline, selegiline, and safinamide, these are monoamine oxidase inhibitors. Okay, they block an enzyme called monoamine oxidase type B. And what that long enzyme name does, what it does is it normally when it functions, that enzyme, it breaks down dopamine. And so these MAOB inhibitors block that enzyme. And so they block the breakdown of dopamine, at least for some time. So they allow your dopamine to circulate longer. So if you take one of these medicines on their own without levodopa, you're not actually getting any exogenous dopamine. You're just making your own dopamine that's in your brain last longer. Okay. If you don't follow the guidelines for taking these medications and you take a higher dose of this than prescribed, which you should not do, the enzyme goes from being an MAOB inhibitor to being a non-specific inhibitor, and it also inhibits the enzyme MAOA. That is very bad. That will make you sensitive to the dietary compound tyramine, which can lead to high blood pressure that can be potentially even life-threatening if you consume large enough amounts of it. And high tyramine foods include alcohol, aged cheeses, cured or fermented foods, soybean products that you see there. So very important to understand, if you take it at the prescribed dose that your doctor gives it to you, that is the accepted safe dose, the enzyme only inhibits MAOB, and you can drink alcohol or have some of these cheeses or whatnot within moderation. But if you take these medications at higher doses than prescribed, and then you also eat these foods, that's where you can run into trouble. So, some conclusions. Nutrition acts as the fuel for our body to function. There's no single best diet. For people with Parkinson's, everyone has different needs and preferences. The Mediterranean diet is a healthy diet that can improve brain health in people with Parkinson's, but more research is needed. And people with Parkinson's should monitor their food-drug interactions with their medications. And really, you should be discussing this with your neurologist. I think it's very, very important, regardless of what stage of the disease you're in. It's critical, okay? And your neurologist may enlist the help of a dietitian as well to best optimize your treatment. Okay, questions?
Thanks so much, Dr. Paul. Actually, as you can imagine, we've had a tremendous number of questions come in. We've had questions submitted when people registered, all very, very important. So I want to try and get to as many as we can.
Absolutely.
And I have to say that there are some themes, and the first one that I think seems to be the highest priority for me is a number of people wrote in about losing weight and not being able to get the enough caloric intake. I tried to group them here. One person asked, is this merely not eating enough food? What supplements do you recommend? One person talks about losing over 40 pounds and feeling constantly fatigued and having extreme difficulty. So I wonder if we could just delve into this a little bit more and hear some specific recommendations that you might have. This seems like such a serious issue.
Sure. So if you're having trouble maintaining your weight, definitely you should get checked out by your general practitioner to make sure that there's nothing else going on and it truly is Parkinson's related. So that's first and foremost. The other thing that you want to be aware of is that, Parkinson's can, I think, burn a lot of calories in itself. If somebody has bad tremor or they're stiff and rigid, imagine you're just clenching your muscles tight all the time. That's not easy to do, and your body's doing that involuntarily. If somebody has dyskinesia and they're wiggling all the time or moving a lot, that also burns calories, okay? So the disease in itself tends to make people quite lean, all right? So we really have to make sure that you're getting enough calories. If you're losing weight unintentionally and your GP has cleared you and said that there's nothing else going on and it's Parkinson's related, I usually advise my patients to go for foods that have a high caloric density, okay, that are going to give you the most bang for your buck. So things like avocado, nut butters that you might blend up into a smoothie, fish, okay? These are things that, you can eat a handful of nuts, but that's easily 200 calories, okay? And if you blend that up into a smoothie, you've taken maybe 100 or 150 calorie smoothie that might only be water and fruits, and you throw some nuts in there, and maybe add like an oat milk or whatever milk that you want, and now you're at a 500 calorie smoothie, okay? So think about these high density foods, high calorie density foods that pack a lot of caloric punch in a small amount. Fish is also a great example of that. And you'll get your omegas that way as well. And it's no doubt it's tough because this is a disease that not only affects your nutrition, but affects your sense of smell and taste, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to take that into account, that the palate is changing. And I always tell people that this is a disease that, you have to be so deliberate with the things that you're doing, right? All the things that you used to just do on your own without thinking about, now you have to do them very deliberately. Whether it's taking big steps, whether it's socializing in the non-COVID era, whether it's exercising, whether it's speaking loudly, you have to be so deliberate. Nutrition is no different. You have to be very, very deliberate with it.
Sounds so important. And I'm so glad that you were able to address all of that. And we are going to come back to a few fish related questions. I want to make sure that we get to this one. I think this is so important. And we answer this in a number of different ways with our different programs, but how does one find a dietitian that, in this case, that really understands PD?
Yeah, so I would urge you to go to a center where, or at least consult with a center that is a Parkinson's Foundation Center of Excellence, or one of the other organizations that are related, that give a designation of Center of Excellence for Parkinson's care, whatever's local to you, and reach out to them, and they can help find somebody in your area who has the expertise. Reach out to your support groups, reach out to your movement disorder doctor. These are all ways to find somebody. And now, in the COVID era, you might be able to access a lot of these things virtually, and you don't have to be in the same town or geography as somebody to get a consultation.
Right.
So I think getting a recommendation through word of mouth, but also using the organizations like the Parkinson's Foundation, who really are vested in this, is really a great way to get in touch with the right resources.
And we do, in fact, have many centers of excellence throughout the United States, and in fact, internationally as well, but it might not be one close to. My suggestion, and I believe Danielle put it in the chat for you, reach out to our helpline, 1-800-4 in PD info, and the helpline specialist will be able to help and look up these resources for you as well, so you can check in with them. So let's talk a little bit about some specifics. And this seems like it would be a pretty common question or situation. So this person writes, I don't eat any seafood. What else can I eat in place of seafood? And what about chicken?
Sure. So again, there's no exact correct diet. Okay. So if you're not eating seafood, that's no problem. That's okay. Okay. If you like having chicken, that's fine. Okay. But go for the lean varieties. Okay. So if you're going to have chicken, have it without the skin. You're obviously not going to have it fried. You know, if you're going to use, if you're going to have chicken, you're going to have a small 2 to 4 ounce portion. You can use salt or some kind of lemon to season the meat. Cook it with olive oil. Use spices. You know, that's what you really want to use to season, because that adds a lot of flavor. And many spices have antioxidant properties. Okay, so things like turmeric that you might read about. Okay, that has antioxidant properties. So use these spices that are out there. For the person who is doesn't eat fish, and it sounds like maybe doesn't eat meat either, you know, you can focus on legumes or lentils. Okay, lentils are a great source of protein, fiber. It's very filling, very nutritious, packed with antioxidants, and that can be a wonderful substitute. So the bean is your friend. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just related back to seafood for a moment, when you think of seafood, when you think of fish, we also have often heard about mercury levels, high mercury levels. Is there a way for someone to know more about that, to avoid purchasing or eating seafood with high mercury levels?
Yeah, sure. So I think this is something that you might read different things and hear different things about, depending on your source of information. I think that probably there's some heavy metals in a lot of seafood. It's a little bit hard to get away from it in general. So I don't think it's something that you necessarily have to eat every day. I think you can eat it, you know, a few times a week. And again, just like you vary the colors of the rainbow with your vegetables, you want to have a variety of seafoods. But I think it can be something that you have, you know, 2 to 4 times a week or 3 to 5 times a week. And then, you know, depending on where you're getting your seafood from, you know, in an ideal world, again, the more that you ask for these things, these specifics, the more the cost goes up for seafood. But you can ask about whether it's, you know, wild salmon or caught wild. How long has it been in the market? When you go to purchase your seafood, when was it shipped? You know, those are questions that you can ask when purchasing seafood. But it doesn't have to be something you have every day. And if you don't enjoy it, you don't enjoy it. So that's up to you. So that's why I say, think about what you like, what makes sense for you. And there's many foods that are on this diet, but it doesn't mean eliminating everything that is not part of the diet. Okay. So it's just more of the good stuff, less of the stuff that is maybe not as beneficial for your body.
And as you referred to it, the dietary pattern versus diet per se, is that correct?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Okay.
Exactly.
We do have a few comments, questions that as it relates to organic foods, which isn't surprising, but Dr. Paul, do you have any specific recommendations, or, for example, the environmental working groups, Dirty Dozen or Clean 15, and we should probably explain that as well. Is that something that you subscribe to, or do you recommend anything along those lines?
Yeah, I think if you can afford organic produce and cost is not an issue, I would certainly say go for the organic. It's true, you're not going to have the pesticides, and you have a better kind of sense of how the food has been treated. That being said, you can also be strategic in how you buy your organic foods. So things that have a rind, you know, you might go for something that's non-organic, right? So something like an orange or a banana, that has a very thick peel, you can go for non-organic. But your greens, you might opt for organic there. Okay. And the greens that I absolutely, absolutely love are your cruciferous vegetables. Okay. So you want to really eat a lot of cruciferous vegetables, like your broccoli and cauliflower. And those are the two things that I would say, if you're going to really change something, eat more of those, and get them organic, and but wash everything very well regardless. That's just very critical.
Any other thoughts? I mean, because I do think people are looking for specific suggestions besides broccoli, cauliflower, anything else that you might want to add to that list?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's really eating the rainbow. So going to that grocery store, looking at the
Okay.
produce section, and filling your cart up with things that are mainly from the produce section. Okay, so Swiss chard, kale, mushrooms, all of these things are things that have just a variety of different nutrients that will have different benefits to your body. There's different types of kale, there's baby spinach. I mean, it goes on and on in terms of the variety that you can get, but really making sure that that's the star of your plate. I will say personally for myself, once I will say that, I've changed my diet over time, and I've incorporated more and more plants in my diet, but I can tell you I've done it very gradually. It wasn't at all, I didn't stop eating what I was eating before, and then suddenly all I'm eating is salad now. So it's a gradual process. But once you go through that process, if you look at your diet now in general, and you really map out what you're eating, there probably are some things that you're eating very frequently. There are probably some core items that you're eating very, very frequently. And so what you want to do is look at those core items and see, are those very healthy, or can you make some changes in those core items? And then switch that into something else that is maybe better for you. And you have a new core or habits that you kind of rely on. Okay. So it doesn't have to be complicated where every day it's like, oh my God, what do I eat? It's different every day of the week.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that challenging. So we tend to eat and gravitate towards the same things as humans anyway. You just want to think about what those things are and kind of change that and develop a new pattern.
I love the picture I have, and what a great concept for all of us to think about when you think of your grocery cart, of having it mostly filled with items from the produce section. That I think could be a great reminder and guide for many, many people.
Yeah.
Including myself.
Yeah.
So let me ask a
Can all do
few
better.
specific questions. I think people have some really, and I'm hoping that if any of these questions don't make sense to you, whatever, let me know. So how about soy milk? Any comments on soy milk? Is it okay to drink?
Yeah, I think soy milk is okay to drink. People worry about hormones and things like that in soy. And from my reading of the scientific literature, it's negligible. You're not drinking enough soy milk typically, or eating enough soy. Even if you drink soy milk and eat tofu regularly, you're just not getting that much. You're not getting it at quantities enough to make a difference in those hormonal levels. But again, listen to your body. Some things agree better with some people than others. So, it is very individual, but I would say there's no restriction on soy milk.
Okay. And how about artificial sweeteners? Harmful or not?
Again, I would really advise people to stay away from things that, are processed, and artificial sweeteners do fall into that category. Okay. Am I guilty of having a Diet Pepsi once in a while? Of course I am. Okay. We're all human. We all want to enjoy these little things. But again, change the pattern. It shouldn't be your regular go-to. Okay. So instead of having 3 Pepsis a day, if that's something that a patient does, I tell them have 1 a day and substitute the others for sparkling water, which still have natural or flavored naturally and don't have any preservatives or additives or artificial things in them. So it doesn't have to be all or none, you know, just do the best you can, but try to reduce your intake of some of these things that are processed.
You're so sound and common sense. This, though, the next question is very, very serious, and I want to make sure that we give it proper attention. So there is one of our attendees who asked this very serious question. So where does ice cream fit in the scheme of things? So yeah, I was
love it.
definitely trying to make a light of that, but I think it's important to talk about the fun part of what people get.
Absolutely, absolutely. So like I said, there's no bad foods, okay? If you enjoy ice cream, I'm certainly not here to tell you no more ice cream for you, okay? It's just that you want to look at moderation. I have some patients that they come to me and they have health issues, they have other medical problems, and they're eating ice cream every day and big portions of ice cream every day. And so I will counsel them on saying, let's try cutting it in half or maybe going to every other day, right? So just something small like that so that it's not ripping the Band-Aid right off and an all or none scenario, but just a small change, but still a significant change, okay? And there'll be slip-ups. And if you slip up, that's okay, get back on the horse. But ice cream is definitely something you should enjoy. And, you know, a lot of Parkinson's patients may be in their 50s or 60s or 70s and may have grandchildren or other people that they're interacting with. And certainly you might want to have ice cream with your grandkids, and you should.
So important, the quality of life related
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
humans and our food. You referred earlier to this, and you are an expert, so I want to make sure that we include this question. I know it's not an easy one, but would deep brain stimulation, DBS, help stop weight loss?
It is true that studies have shown that deep brain stimulation can help. People do gain weight after deep brain stimulation typically, okay? Why is that? It can be for a variety of things, but one of the things that I think plays a big role is deep brain stimulation can reduce or eliminate tremor. It can reduce or eliminate dyskinesia, and it can significantly reduce off time. So that time where patients might be very tight and stiff. So you're not expending so many calories doing those activities because the DBS is doing the work for you. And so people gain weight. And it's something I counsel patients on and that we watch because I don't want them to gain too much weight either. Okay. To be clear, weight gain is not you wouldn't do deep brain stimulation to gain weight. It would be if you're underweight or you want to gain weight, it would be a nice bonus if you had that effect, but it's not an indication to do deep brain stimulation for the purpose of weight gain, just to be clear.
As a non-doctor, non-medical person, my understanding is DBS isn't for everyone to begin with. There are certain really important criteria that the doctors start with.
Absolutely. So deep brain stimulation, make no mistake about it, it's brain surgery. It is a fantastic treatment, but it is a big commitment as well, and is a big step, and it is not for everyone. So I encourage my patients, regardless of where they are in the disease, believe it or not, to meet with a movement disorder doctor and just learn about it. Because what you don't want to do is wait too long and miss the window of opportunity. You always want to have as many options available to you in your treatment as you move through the disease. So going to meet with a neurologist, even early on, to understand what makes somebody a good candidate versus not a candidate can be very helpful. And the neurologist, you know, this is something I spend a lot of time doing, is I counsel people on when is the right time. So I have people come to me and I say, sorry, you're too early, but this is what you should be looking for. I'll see you in a year, go back and see your regular neurologist. Okay. On the other hand, some people come to me right in the sweet spot and I say, you know, it's reasonable to consider, but you could wait a year. And others might come towards the end of the window where I'll say, you really, the window's closing. We really should do surgery in the next 6 months or so. Otherwise, you might not be an option if we wait. It might not be an option for you if we wait too long. But if you meet with that neurologist early on, you have that relationship, then the full spectrum is available. And people who do DBS also offer other treatments, and you might qualify for something else, okay, that you may not be aware of. So I always tell people to consult early with a movement disorder doctor for that education.
Okay. And I didn't get to let everybody know that that was our last question. We are pretty much out of time, but let me take this opportunity to say such a big thank you to everyone today who's been involved. Dr. Paul, thank you so much. This has just been fabulous. So much information. Obviously, we didn't get to everybody's question. Call our helpline. That's what it's there for, 1-800-4PD-INFO. Reach out to our helpline. They will be there to advise and provide you more information. Thank you to all of our great sponsors, Kiowa Curran, Boston Scientific, Amneal, and Medtronic. And thank you to all of you who tuned in and participated with us today. You will get a link to this recording and the slides and a follow-up email in just a short while. So you can come back and study any of these parts that you would like to revisit. I would also like to share with you that in addition to this kind of local and regional programming, the Parkinson's Foundation, specifically my team, provides virtual education on a weekly basis, in fact, 3 days a week. So PD Health at Home is a huge variety of programs that you can explore. Please go to our website, check it out. In addition to all the upcoming programs, you can visit and view all the previous programs that we have had on there as well. So please think about Mindfulness Mondays, Wellness Wednesdays, and Fitness Fridays. And next, I'd like to just share with you, since this is for Cherry Hill, New Jersey and beyond, that coming to you from the Parkinson's Foundation, New York, New Jersey chapter, I would like to say on behalf of our team, I hope you stay in touch with us, learn about our programs, and I want to take just a moment and introduce Nahed, and she's going to tell you about a really important event coming up. Nahed?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Nancy. Thanks for having me on also. But this is really exciting. Our Moving Day Southeastern Pennsylvania is going to be a really fun drive-through experience this year. It's going to be on Saturday, May 22nd. And for anyone who's attended the past, it's at the same park, Core Creek Park in Langhorne, Pennsylvania. And I really hope that everyone can join us because it's going to be a lot of fun.
I hope so many of you can go. That would be fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And our very last slide for the day is once again to remind you that we are here for you. Please check out all the resources, parkinson.org, or our helpline, 1-800-4PD-INFO. You can actually just email the helpline too at helpline@parkinson.org. Thank you again to everyone behind the scenes and everyone who participated. Please stay safe, stay warm, and please fill out our evaluation. We truly appreciate your input. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.